This is removing and replacing the AC compressor in your 4th Gen Maxima. We've already got the belt off. I got another video for that. I'll go ahead and put it in the link in the sidebar. Here's your compressor. Way down here, just follow this low side hose around down to the compressor. A good angle here. That's not an angle. That's what the hell I'm looking at. And you can see those two fittings down there at the bottom. And right down there beneath the alternator, that's the AC compressor. Autofocus. There you go. Now the compressor's got 4 bolts to hold it on. Go directly into the bracket on the front end. Here's the pearl. Here's your alternator. Here's your exhaust manifold. There's your low side line. And there's 2 bolts and 4 bolts hold the compressor onto the motor. Now I'm just swapping compressors over. I'm not going to get into the whole buying the right compressor for your model year and type of fittings, because there are 2 different types. I've already checked mine and they're good to go. Yeah, so what you'll need is a ratchet and a 14mm socket, and the lines that bolt up to the compressor have 12mm head bolts, so you'll need a 12 wrench, ratchet wrench preferably. You can do it with the regular wrench, it just takes longer. Now you might be able to get to them from the top with a swivel socket. I'm going to give that a shot and see if that works. Okay, luckily enough you're able to get to them from the top with a long ass extension and a swivel socket. Alright, your 2 fittings are off the compressor now. And you can see those flat flanges right there are where the hoses went. Now you got those off, and again they're both 12mm head bolts. You can get to them quite easily with a long extension and a swivel and a socket, or a swivel socket, or what have you, from the top, or you can get to them with a regular wrench or ratcheting wrench from the bottom. Now, I just prefer from the top, it's a lot easier. So now you're ready to go down there and start taking off the compressor mounting bolts. Okay, since you can't see a damn thing with radiator and condenser in the car and everything like that, I'm going to show you on the pearl here. Here's the compressor, there's the alternator right above it. One thing I did forget to mention earlier, you got to remove this wire. That energizes the clutch, well, the coil that pulls in the clutch. That actually allows your AC compressor to work. When that's not energized, it probably just spins free. When it is, the clutch spins along with it, which is what runs the compressor. So, just tab, where is it? Tab on the top, and it'll slide right off that little bracket right there. It's not that hard to do in the car, but you can see that. Which leads up to this connector right here that also powers the alternator. Or, well, it's got the connector for the alternator. So I tuck that out of the way. Now I can't truly show you how it is to move the compressor in the car because I don't have a radiator or fans or shroud or hoses or anything in the way, but this is how you would do it and how I just did it on the other car. I just use a long handle 3/8 ratchet, short 14mm socket. That's enough to get up in there and remove all 4 mounting bolts. And this one also, if you don't disconnect that clutch, that coil wire right there, you won't be able to get the ratchet and socket on that bolt. And it's got all 4 bolts right here. They're all in about the same place, top and bottom, so you can see the bottom ones, you can guess where the top ones are. Now for sake of time, I'm just going to run these out using a long extension from through the radiator support. Wish I brought my cordless home. See if one of these connected. Okay. Okay, so after you get these 4 bolts out, well, now get these bottom 2 bolts and completely remove them. Now the upper 2, due to their length, and all 4 bolts are the same, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. Due to their length, the upper ones will not come out when you have a fan shroud, fan, and everything, radiator in place. So you need to completely unscrew them, unthread them from the AC compressor bracket, and let them sit in the compressor. You pull the compressor out with them, and you'll put the compressor back in with them. That's the only way you have any clearance. You just pull the whole compressor down. There you go. Now reinstallation is just as easy. Again, make sure your bolts are in place. Push the compressor up in place. I find it easiest to, when you have a complete car, is to throw in the 2 bottom bolts and get those in a few turns. So they actually hold the compressor in place and doesn't fall on your face. And of course reach up, go ahead and put those 2 bolts in, tighten them all down, and you don't want to torque the shit out of them. You want to get them nice and tight, but again you're talking about steel threads into an aluminum bracket, or steel bolt into an aluminum bracket. And guess what wins? Yeah, the steel. So if you do strip out the threads, you'll have to get that whole compressor bracket instead of just a couple of bolts. So this is actually pretty cool. Just a little trivia. This right here is what some call your dump valve. I believe that's it. Anyway, it's somewhere on the compressor, but wait a second. Yeah, that's it. Basically what happens is if your system has too much pressure in it, if some jackass is charging it up and just, I don't know, size up about a whole fucking tank of 134 in there, once it gets above, I think it's about 500 psi on the high side, that valve would actually not blow out, but it's basically a pop-off valve, or a bypass valve type, and it'll let all the refrigerant escape from there. And I've never seen one personally do that, but from the stories I've heard from the guys that have, it sounds like a damn gunshot, and it will make you shit yourself. So, yeah, just interesting trivia. You can see underneath the little sticker, it's got a little port right there. But that's your overpressure safety. So you really can't overcharge the system extremely much to the point where shit's exploding, except for obviously that pressure relief valve. But after you got the compressor bolted back up, you also don't want to forget the clutch wiring, because if you do, your compressor won't work. Plug that fucker back in. Throw your 2 lines back on. Again, you should be using new O-rings and coating them with PAG oil. But these aren't the ones I'm going to use. But my other ones look okay. I got them lubed up. So I just throw the lines back on there, and these are a lot easier than the fittings on the evaporator, because they're not threaded lines. You just stick the line back in the compressor, pop it in there, and then run the bolts down. And again, steel bolts, aluminum threads. Don't torque them too much. Also, you want to note, let's come over here, that it's got a towel in there to keep any crap from falling in. There are 2 different size bolts to hold those high and low pressure lines on. The low pressure side has a much longer bolt, and that is because the low pressure line has a much larger flange. Here you can see the low pressure. Oops. See how many threads come through. High pressure side, it doesn't come through at all. There's a high pressure side bolt. You can see why, because the high pressure flange is much smaller, or much thinner. Can't really get these 2 next to each other. There we go. See the comparison there. There's a bolt that's supposed to go in it. There's the wrong bolt. So as long as you keep the longer bolt in the low side, shorter bolt in the high side, you're all good to go. So get that done, put it all back together, throw your belt back on, obviously. Then, if that's all the AC work you got to do, go ahead and have it evac'd and charged up. And yeah, you have it evac'd, have it charged up, and hopefully you've got cold AC for a long time to come. That is removing and replacing the AC compressor in your 4th gen Maxima.